Elizabeth Plank, we're here in Montreal for C2 Montreal. You're perfectly bilingual. I'm mostly francophone, so I think we're going to do this both in English and French. Is that good with you?
Yeah, that's my favorite language.
Okay.
The both of them.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So tell me about C2 Montreal. What was it like for you to perform or talk this morning?
I couldn't sleep last night, and I'm interviewing people who I've admired and watched and listened to for my whole life. I'm talking to you right now. You're like my idol. When I was little and growing up, like I was like, Mitsou. So when I got your email, I was like, oh my God, Mitsou wants to talk to me. Like, it's crazy. Je suis avec Mitsou. Oh my God. Oh my God. C'est moi.
So C2 Montreal is like the Coachella for design and innovations. What did you think of your 3 days here?
I understood that, we talk about traditional media like they're stuck in the old age and that they aren't adapting and they're, not connected to the world, to the new modern world that we live in, but it really isn't the case, I think what La Presse is doing, for example, is amazing,
It's an example.
It's an example, and I think for a lot of outlets in the U.S., the thought of not having, the paper, like the actual, newspaper is unimaginable.
Yeah, it's extraordinary. La Presse is a Canadian newspaper that was the first one in the world to go on iPad. You started at Mike.com as an intern. What was your big break?
Oh my gosh, that's a good question. I think, okay, so 3 weeks after I started, I criticized the New York Times because they had a section that was called Should Women Lead? And it was an up for debate section where they have people say different, have different positions on an issue, and usually it's like something debatable, but like, should women lead? Of course. Like, or can women lead? Like, of course we can, just like men. And so I wrote this scathing blog post, and I was like, it's so stupid. And the New York Times editor responded to my article, and back then Mike was like, no one knew about Mike, so they actually were like, in a blog called Policy Mike, Liz Plank makes it, and that was very special for me because, and that's when I realized like what I write can have an impact. And the New York Times ended up changing their headline and really taking that criticism to shape the way that they talk about women.
And then you got this idea a bit later on to ask men to draw vaginas on a sheet of paper. What was your big reveal on that day?
That straight men don't know what they're doing. Like, they don't. It all made sense. Like, my entire sex life just like started falling through my eyes. Like, oh my God, this explains so much of my life. No, I understood that female anatomy is not that complicated, but we don't talk about it and we don't teach about it in schools. And the guy who did the best was a gay guy. Like, he just knew it through education, and I guess he'd learned about it and understood it. So everyone can learn about female anatomy.
Do you think that women would have been better doing it?
I actually wanted to do a follow-up video.
You should.
Me and the producer, we were women, and we were like, wait, is that right? Les trompes de Fallope?
Yeah, because I know my daughters don't want to hear about it.
Right. No, I think
like I say vulva, and they're like, "Rah, mommy!" They're freaking out.
Of course. And I think women don't know their bodies either. Like, it took me a long time to know how that worked, and I realized really late in life. And I think, again, it comes back to just us being comfortable with female sexuality in the same way that I think we're more comfortable about male sexuality. Like, men talk about the things that turn them on, and women, and I feel like women are a little bit more, I think it's changing, but I think women are a little bit more scared because people will have judgments about it.
À qui tu penses pour te donner du courage quand il y a des questions qui te gênent vraiment de poser?
Oh, y a un meme sur Instagram. Puis c'est carry yourself with the confidence of a mediocre white man. Moi, c'est ça. So I looked around me and I see all these guys who are just like fumbling over, and I was like, what if I just like they wouldn't think, doubt themselves and wonder if they're good enough. So why do I, So I try and carry that confidence that I think men are more comfortable having.
Which leads me to the question of this question you raised in an article recently, saying that we always say that in the workplace women should act like men, but maybe they shouldn't really be doing this. Can you tell me more about it?
Yeah, I think we often tell women to act like men. We think that that's the solution to most of the world's problems, when actually I think the world would be a better place if men acted a little bit more like women sometimes. When women are leaders, they lead differently. And whether it's in the workplace or in politics, they're more collaborative. They're more, have more empathy with each other. They are more creative together and think about, creating in groups. And I think that that is just as good as another type of leadership that's male. We devalue the way that women are. Like, we devalue, makeup and fashion. We're like, oh, that's so silly. And I'm like, what about sports? Like, the things that guys like are not viewed in the same negative way, So it's about, rethinking about all those things.
A lot of things have to be rethought, and I'm always surprised, coming from Canada, realizing how much abortion is still such an issue in the States.
All of the politicians, whether it's they're running for president or they're in state legislatures, say that abortion is murder. And so they say, abortion is murder, it should be made illegal. But what does it mean when you say that abortion is murder? So, what happens to the women is basically
Do they become murderers?
Exactly. And what do we do to murderers in our society? We punish them. We put them in jail. Chris Christie, who was running for president earlier this year, I asked his campaign manager, I said, if Chris Christie says that abortion is murder, does he know what happens to the women? And the guy just was like, yeah, I'm sure he knows. And someone asked Donald Trump, and he said yes, because he doesn't know. Donald Trump's just pretending to be conservative and pretending to be Republican, which is a whole other conversation. But he exposed that myth, right? If you call abortion murder, and you're using that to pass laws that make access to abortion harder and more difficult, especially for low-income, marginalized women, not the rich women who can drive to the abortion place, the ones who need it and who don't have the money, then you're using this abortion rhetoric for that, then you need to follow through with what that means, And anyway, so politicians shouldn't be using that term, and unless they know how to deal with it.
Tu travailles maintenant pour Vox.com. Alors, qu'est-ce qui a été le moment le plus extraordinaire jusqu'à maintenant? What has been the most enlightening moment so far?
Absolutely interviewing the Prime Minister of Canada,
really?
Justin Trudeau. It was really the privilege of my whole life. I really,
well, it's still on your profile on your Facebook. Yes, it's still the picture.
It will be forever. I want it on my tombstone, pointing to Justin.
So why was it so amazing for you?
Because I've rarely met someone, especially a politician, who is motivated by good. It gave me faith into politics again.
And it's not because he's cute, right?
Also, super hot. Yeah.
Yeah, Donald Trump is today the official pick for Republicans. It might be bad for humanity, but very good for your career.
For me, I see it as an opportunity to have a conversation about women, about sexism, about racism, about xenophobia, about how we talk about Mexicans, about how we talk about Muslims.
And you really asked those questions. Tell me about the last question that you asked him.
That was my first press conference. I actually texted my friend at MSNBC. I was like, do we just shout the questions? Like, how does it work? I didn't even know. It was my first time asking.
How does it work?
You sit down. He, won. So he comes out in Trump Tower with New York, New York. Da, 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 da.
Sinatra.
And all of his family and his supporters are all there, and they're cheering. And he comes down this carpet. He comes at the podium, and then he talks. Sometimes, which is that time, he takes questions, and he just kind of looks, and then you have to raise your hand or and then he points to you, and then you ask your question.
Okay,
so he pointed to me. I was the last question. I was the whole time I was trying, and then he pointed to me.
So you knew what you wanted to ask him? It was prepared?
Well, I thought about it during the day. I'd heard him say about the woman card, and no one was talking about it, and I was like, this is an insane thing to say, that somehow Hillary Clinton being a woman helps her, when in fact it's very hard for women in politics. We've never had a female, president of the United States. And so I just said, you said Hillary Clinton is playing the women card. How exactly is she doing that? And he went off. That was his most intense, I think, response that night. And he said, she wouldn't even be getting 5% of the vote, and women don't like her. The only thing Hillary has is the women card. And then he ended there, and I was like, oh my God.
Mais il y a 7 femmes sur 10 qui n'appuient pas Trump aux États-Unis. Tu penses vraiment qu'il va gagner?
En fait, la plupart des gens qui votent aux États-Unis, ce sont des femmes. Donc, c'est une majorité des votes. C'est aussi une population qui est plus 10% plus propice, en fait, à aller voter aussi. Donc, elles votent plus souvent. Ça fait qu'il y a plus de femmes, mais il y a aussi plus de personnes de minorités visibles. Donc, il y a plus de Latinos. Et puis, on sait bien aussi que les Latinos ont de la difficulté avec Donald Trump. Alors, c'est un problème très difficile. En fait, Politico a fait une recherche et ont trouvé que 7 hommes sur 10, 7 hommes blancs sur 10 devaient voter pour Trump s'ils voulaient gagner. Fait qu'il faut qu'il y ait beaucoup de support des hommes pour pouvoir faire la balance.
28% of Americans think that they're going to move to Canada if ever Trump is elected. Does that mean that we're going to get you back?
Maybe. If you have me back, I will come back every day. I will come back. My mom will be so happy you asked that. She's like...
Yeah? She misses you?
But it's... I like having the option. Right now, I don't think there's more contrast than there is between Donald Trump and Justin Trudeau.
Right.
So I'm glad I have a home here in Montreal.
Just in case.
Forever, yeah.
You have a shelter.
Yeah, from the storm, the Trump storm.
I wish you the best.
Thank you so much.
Do you want to go see around, look around?
Let's go.